Hey guys, this is my first instructional video. Basically what we're going to be going over before you do any drumming, we got to know what we're playing here. So this could be really basic for you, or this could be all new. So we'll start out with the snare drum. This is the snare drum. The snare drum can produce a variety of sounds. First of all, produce your just typical snare hit. I mean, there's different sounds as you work around towards the rim. It sounds a little different. You can get a stronger, more powerful hit if you hit the rim and this head at the same time. It's called a rim shot. The other, for like Latin and like sometimes swing, is called a cross stick. It's involved you take your stick and you lay it across the face of the drum, and you just sort of give it a little click. Then there's also the rolls. All sorts of different things. We'll get into rolls later because they're not the simplest thing to learn. So now that you guys know sort of what it sounds like, I'll show you guys how it works because it's a little different than other drums. When you play the snare drum, the vibrations caused by the stick on the surface, the head, cause these things are called snares. They're like little metal wires that run across the bottom of the drum that vibrate and rattle, giving it that sort of nice rattling sound. That can be controlled by this switch here on the side. I mean, the switch usually looks different on every snare drum, but you can usually figure out how it works. So, I mean, when you have it off, it can also be used as like a sort of sounds like a tom-tom, which we'll get into next. But yeah, because of all these different sounds that it can make, the snare drum is probably one of your most functional drums on the drum set, and it's basically used in any style of drum set playing. So pretty important. Let's take a look at the tom-toms. All right. So next we have the tom-toms. Toms for short. See, with toms, you can't get by without a snare drum, but toms can be interchanged depending on the drummer. Some guys use 1, some guys use like 20. It sort of depends what style you're playing. 3 is pretty typical. Sometimes you'll see 2, high and low. Kind of depends on what you're looking to do. As opposed to like the snare drum has more of like a sort of like a sharp bite to it. The toms usually more round, more tone to them. They're used more for like filling. And I mean, sometimes occasionally like a groove or a beat, but you don't usually see that too much, especially with like entry-level stuff. So mostly just for like playing fills. So these two, the top two, if they're mounted on like a rack off the bass drum, then they're called rack toms. And this, since it's got 3 legs on the carpet, is called a floor tom. If it had been mounted, sometimes they're mounted on the ride stand anywhere, then it would be a rack tom, but since it's on the floor, it's called a floor tom. Simple enough to understand. So view ours, the high tom. And then working down, middle tom, and then your low tom. So, like for instance, I'll just give you a situation. I'm playing a rock beat, so I'll be, and I'll come to my solo, like that kind of thing. So I guess next we will move on to the bass drum. All right, this is the bass drum. The bass drum is used basically to give any beat its drive or pulse. It's just got sort of a punching kind of sound that it just takes any beat and that's what nails it down. Without a bass drum, it doesn't sound very good. So basically the bass drum is just a big tom-tom that's on its side, and instead of hitting it with a stick, you play it with a kick pedal that strikes it like that. There's 2 different ways to use the kick pedal. There's one heel down, or there's heel up. I usually go heel up. It gives you sort of a faster You can play it faster, but it's really just personal preference, I think. Anyways, to dampen it, people put all sorts of stuff inside theirs, like pillows, sweatshirts, whatever. I put a blanket inside mine, just gives it a less sort of boomy sound. They're usually made and they just kind of ring, and that's not totally what you want. But yeah, so I'll show you guys what it sounds like in a sturdy 8th rock beat, and here you go. So there you have it. Now we'll be taking a look at, we'll be shifting the cymbals to give you a look at the ride cymbal. Alright, so let's get into some cymbals now. We start out with the ride cymbal because it's basically used in your big 3 styles: rock, swing, and Latin. So again, it's sort of like a snare drum in the fact that you can get many different sounds out of it. You can have your straight click sound, you can have your bell sound, and you can give sort of a crash sound. Give you a full sound. A typical ride, they all come in all different sizes. You can get huge ones, you can get relatively small ones, but typically your ride is going to be your biggest cymbal. Mine's a 20-inch, that's a pretty standard size. As you can see, all my cymbals are Sabian. It's either Sabian or Zildjian. They're both high quality cymbal brands. But basically, I guess the other thing I should say is cymbal placement, where you put them around the drum, a lot of it is opinion, what feels comfortable for you. You'll see drummers put their ride cymbal over here. That's sort of a rock positioning. Up here is more of a jazz kind of thing. I like to have my arm more straight when I play it. It just feels more comfortable for me. But really, that's up to you. So, I mean, here's an example: ride in a rock beat. Just also, you can use your ride for a swing. And then Latin. So there you have it. Now, I guess next we'll go to the hi-hat. Alright, so the hi-hat cymbal is basically 2 cymbals sandwiched on top of one another. So, and then they basically just rest on this rod here, which is controlled by this pedal down here. So you can, the hi-hat, it like opens and closes, sort of like that. Gives you different sounds and can be used in many different styles. To construct your hi-hat assembly, you first of all you got to figure out which one's the bottom cymbal. It usually doesn't say the dimensions, or sometimes doesn't have the logo or the brand or whatever. Like, see, mine doesn't have. This is the bottom because it doesn't have that logo there. So you just slide it over the rod here, and then this top cymbal has what's called a clutch, and I'll disassemble that so you can see. It's basically just a piece of equipment that it just secures the top cymbal to this rod, because that's what, this cymbal never moves. This is the one that moves on top of that one. So basically you take your clutch, put it through, make sure there's foam on both sides of the cymbal, so it doesn't, so there's not too much like metal on plastic contact. It's not good. And then you want to take your little screw thing here, and you want to screw it on, so it's not too tight, but tight enough that it's not wobbling all over the place, like the ad about. Then you're going to slide that over the rod, and then at this point it shouldn't be fastened, but then you're going to want to, you move the rod down with your foot, and then you tighten this until it grips the rod opens and closes. You can do it wide. You never do it that wide. Just an example. You usually keep it. I keep it about I don't know, an inch open. Gives you the most, I don't know, dynamic feel or whatever you want to call it. But again, that's personal opinion. The other thing that you might consider is on the bottom. It's called a beveler. You probably have it. Some stands don't. But what it does is just a screw that you either tighten or loosen, and what it does is it pushes up on a plate, which angles your bottom cymbal. So like instead of like having them flush, they're sort of an angle like this. And usually you always want to have a little bevel in there, so you're not just getting like a suction-y sound. That's not what you want. You want sort of like a sloshy but crisp. See, that's a little too beveled, but you just want a crisp, kind of nice sounding hi-hat sound like that. So I'll give you guys now a little look of what that would sound like on the set, to give you guys a better idea. So the hi-hat is positioned to the left of the snare. I usually keep mine angled up a little bit. But again, just so it's comfortable is where you want it. Typically when you're playing, you cross your right hand over your left hand plays the snare, and your right hand plays the hi-hat, because your right hand's usually the strongest one, and once you're lefty, and then you're going like that. But, so, I mean, you can sort of control how tight you're closing it with your left foot, but if you let up, so you can get sort of variety of sounds. So like, for example, or sometimes even the hi-hat's used in like a pulse on like a swing beat. You usually play your hi-hat on 2 and 4, so like you'll be playing your ride. To give it just a nicer pulse and sound. Next and finally, we'll be taking a look at the crash cymbals and how they can be used. Alright, crash cymbals. Well, they come in all shapes and sizes. There's all sorts of varieties. I just have one higher pitched one and one lower pitched one, just for a variety so they don't sound the same. But again, it's personal preference. Mine's a 15 inch and a 16 inch. So, yeah. Typically, crash cymbals are played at the end of like fills, or like on beat 1 of like a beat, because you don't just play it in like the middle of a measure. There's very specific times to play crash cymbal. And if you don't play them there, then you can make yourself sound really bad. So, I guess I'll give you guys an example. So, I'm playing a rock beat. What happened here? I'm gonna come up with my fill and end it with a crash on the first beat of the next one. Another thing to note when playing the crash cymbal is always play the bass drum when you play the crash cymbal. If you don't, it doesn't have the same punch, it doesn't have the same drive, and it just sort of sounds weak and not what you want it to sound like. As far as positioning goes, there's another thing. Anything goes wherever you like it. I keep my my deeper toned crash to the right of my ride, and my higher one over here. But you'll see drummers with a ride here and their crash there, and then you'll see guys with like 20 crashes all over, and it's like, again, it's sort of a stylistic thing, it's a preference thing, whatever you're looking to play. So I hope you found this video helpful. This is my first one, so I hope it was informative. See you guys next time.